The day I met a retarded goose. 7 or 8 years ago, a friend of ours received a small insurance settlement of about $3,000. As Judy and I had been friends for a number of years, she asked us if we would like to drive her to Biloxi, Mississippi for 3 days of gambling. Judy advised her that because of all the expense that we had incurred throughout the years from saving abused animals from abusive situations, that we could not afford to do such a luxury. Sharon advised us that she would rent a car for 4 days, pay for the gas to and from Biloxi, Mississippi, pay for all the hotel expenses, and that she would give Judy and I $500 each if we would take her on the trip. You guys have never been able to afford a vacation. In fact, you haven't even gone out to dinner in at least a year, maybe 2, she voiced. We told Sharon that we would think it over and telephone her back. Later that evening, Judy and I sat down over a cup of coffee and began discussing what we should do. There was no doubt in my mind that Judy wanted to go. I could see the excitement written all over her face. Throughout the years, Judy and I had watched many television shows, each showing spectacular lights and the exciting sounds that casino slot machines had to offer. She would just smile and say, "Dad, one day I'd really like to go to one of those casinos. I'd like to see something like that." I would just wink at her and smile. The next morning, I telephoned Sharon and told her that we appreciated her offer, but that we would have to refuse. All day long, I thought about the trip and how much a small vacation would mean to Judy. About 3 o'clock that afternoon, I telephoned Sharon and told her that I was reconsidering her offer. I had decided that the 3 of us could go to Biloxi, and while Sharon and Judy were playing the slot machines, that I would walk around the casino pretending to gamble, all the while saving the money that I had been given to feed and care for the animals when we returned home. Because Sharon was taking care of the other expenses, it was agreed that Judy and I would pay for the meals. 9 hours later, tired and exhausted, we pulled into Gulfport, Mississippi and checked into a motel. After getting a good night's rest, the 3 of us took the shuttle bus and headed to Biloxi. What a wonderful feeling it was to see my wife relax and smile for a change. The 35 years of waitressing had taken a heavy toll on her body. A youthful look appeared to come back into her face. Once again her eyes sparkled and glowed, and I watched as she laughed when the 3 frogs would finally line up on the slot machine and they would begin to talk as if they were Elvis Presley. "What you doing there, baby?" the frog would say. She would laugh and then continue to play the machine. If only for a short time, I was once again married to the youthful girl that I had met many years before. Several hours later, the 3 of us took the taxi and headed off to the Boulevarage Hotel and Casino. Judy and Sharon began to play the slots, so I headed off to walk around the casino. As I walked past this one particular machine, something told me to stop. I took out a $100 bill and placed it onto the machine. Before I could pull the handle, someone touched me on the shoulder. When I turned around, there stood an unshaven, thin, somewhat dirty old man standing behind me. Pulled up onto the top of his head was an extremely large eye patch, sort of like what a pirate would wear. "Do you have a Players Club card?" he asked me. "I'm sorry, I don't know what that is," I told him. He explained that a Players Club card keeps track of how much you play the slots. That after so much playtime, win or lose, you receive points which could be cashed in for prizes or free buffet meal coupons. "Roger," I said as I held out my hand. "Retarded," he replied as he reached out and began shaking my hand. "Excuse me?" I responded. "Retarded, that's what they call me. I mean, what's your real name?" "Goose is my name. I'm the Retarded Goose." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. He opened the brown leather case and turned it toward me. As he did, he covered part of the driver's license with his finger. When I looked, all I could see was the last name, which was in fact Goose. After I told him that I didn't have such a card, he asked me if he could insert his card so he could receive free points for a free meal at the buffet later that evening. Realizing then that the man was probably homeless, I gave him the okay. I was surprised when the man inserted his card, turned, and then walked away. I played for almost 2 hours. Then I decided to try and hunt down Judy and Sharon. Just as I stood up, the man once again appeared behind me. As he pulled his point card out of the slot, I took out a $5 bill and handed it to him. Immediately, he shoved the bill into the slot and pulled the handle. I jumped when bells and whistles began to sound from every section of the machine. "What the hell did you do?" I asked the man. He just stood there with no expression on his face whatsoever. Within a minute, 2 men showed up to the machine. One wrote something down on a clipboard, and then the other one turned around and walked away. Several minutes later, he returned and began placing $100 bills into the hand of the homeless man. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, counted the gentleman in the dark blue suit. As the 2 men walked away, the old man looked at me and said, "How many people are in your group?" "3. "And how long are you going to be in town?" "3 days, I told him. "Please wait here just for a moment," he requested. He turned around and walked away. About 5 minutes later, he returned and handed me a stack of paper coupons. On the top of the coupons were 2 $100 bills. "Here are 30 free meal tickets to the best buffet in town. And I thank you so much for being kind to me," he said. He quickly turned and began to walk away. "Hey, what's with the big eye patch on top of your head? You're not blind." "I know, but remember, I'm retarded," he said, as he took hold of the black patch with his right hand, pulled it outward about 6 inches from his head, and then he let it go. The patch snapped backwards, making a loud popping sound as it hit his forehead. Then he smiled, turned, and walked into the crowd. "You don't appear to be retarded to me," I yelled into the crowd. "I know, let's keep that our little secret," hollered a loud voice somewhere from out of the crowd. As I walked back toward the front of the casino, I began looking at the tickets. Each one was for $5.99 and redeemed only at the Beauvirage Hotel buffet, supposedly the best buffet in town. And believe me, it was the best buffet I had ever eaten at. 4 days later, the 3 of us returned home. In my wallet was $520, which we used to purchase food and medicine in our quest to help abused animals. The Retarded Goose was just another of the many unusual people who came down the path leading into the life of Roger Dean Kiser.